Welcome to the What Anyone Can Do podcast with Leo Batari and me, Randy Cantrell. This show picks up where our previous show, You're the Peer, left off, highlighting the simple truth that who you surround yourself with matters, and that if we enlist the support of others, give back to those who give to us, and pay it forward for the next generation, we can do anything. Author and keynote speaker Leo Batari and I talk with a diverse group of thought leaders who will share stories and insights that will help you succeed in business and in life. How? By doing the things anyone can do, but most of us never will. You're listening and watching. Hopefully you're watching. You can catch us at leobatari.com or at YouTube. Another episode of What Anyone Can Do, leobatari.com. My name is Randy Cantrell from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, where we were mostly rooting for the Nationals. And he absolutely is rooting for the Nationals. He's the star of the show, Leo Batari, in Southern California, but has interest in Washington, D.C.
Well, my daughter's lived there for over a decade. I went to GW. We've been to many Nationals games together. It's a lot of fun. I've been there during times where they were definitely thought they were going to do really well, only to kind of fail, which I know that whole arc really well, having grown up a Red Sox fan, so I get it. But to see a team so unlikely, right? This is a team that had a losing record, 40, 50 games into the season. I mean, they were, and a losing record by a lot. Right. So to come back, just make the playoffs, and in fact, beat two teams that, everyone was thinking this was going to be a matchup for the Astros and the Dodgers. Quite frankly, I mean, is tough as the Yankees always are, as much as I hate to admit that, being a Red Sox fan. But I think still everyone was kind of looking at the Astros and that team and the Dodgers. And for that their pathway to winning the World Series was having to beat both of those teams is pretty remarkable. And, as we talked about too last night, obviously Houston got out to an early lead, and yet the Nationals were able to just keep it close. Times where Houston could have broke it open a little bit and widened that lead, and they didn't. I thought to myself, man, Nationals are absolutely in this ball game as that goes, as you get into, the middle and late relievers, and a lot of things change. And so
that's how they could keep it close. That's how they won most of those games, though, man. I mean, yeah. Back in like the 7th and 8th innings, and
they didn't let it get out of hand, and they stayed around. And, right. It was an amazing thing to watch.
They were saying how many Cy Young winners they beat just, all through the playoffs. I mean, it was just one stud pitcher after another.
Well, and they said it was the only Game 7 in World Series history where you had the two starters were both Cy Young Award winners.
Yeah.
Last night, and also the first series, not only just in Major League Baseball, but in the NHL or in the NBA, where in the 7-game series, not one home game was won, which is
that to me was the remarkable thing. You kept thinking, okay, surely one of them's gonna do it at home, but
I would think it would have been particularly difficult for the Nationals fans, right? So you win 2 in Houston, you got to be thinking, all right, we got to win 1 at home. We get swept at home. It almost, you wonder, the team you watch on TV and the team you see in person aren't even the same guys, right? It's just incredible to me. And does it feel like after Houston comes to your park and whips you 3 games in a row, and it's like, now you don't get to win the World Series, we do, Great.
Yeah.
But,
no, it was, and I'm a non-baseball guy for the most part. I'm a hockey guy, but man, it was really compelling though. Really nerve-wracking,
Well, and I think as we were talking about this, and baseball is such a it's certainly in Fenway, and I think in Boston and for a lot of places around, you think about going to your first ball game with your dad or your uncle or your grandfather or your grandmother or whomever may have taken you, or your mom taking you to a game. and knowing what that experience was all about, never forgetting it, wanting to kind of pass that experience on to your kids and all. And I think baseball in this series is kind of a fitting reminder that, since What Anyone Can Do, the book came out, and a lot of what we've been talking about, in some respects, we haven't hit squarely on the difference between that book and the first one, right? The Power of Peers was all about formal peer groups for CEOs and business leaders, strictly peers, strictly formal situation and all that. And, as you well know, the incredible guests we had on the Year of the Peer podcast, the conversation just continually returned to the informality, right? The people that just surround us every day. It isn't about going to a meeting once a month. It's just about how you engage the people around you, but beyond just your peers. It was that whole circle. It was our parents, our teachers, our kids, our mentors, our mentees, and this whole ensemble of people that make up those who can really make a big difference in our lives. And so I think it's kind of fun today, after the World Series and after what I think can be such a family affair. And after, of course, for those listeners who don't know it, I actually got married last weekend in Cabo to, not only an incredible woman, but it was the bringing together of two families that was so remarkable to watch everyone and everything they did together, and how they went off and all did their own stuff together. And now they've got their own texting group chat now that's totally not just, there's no my family, her family anymore. It's an our thing. And everyone's so thrilled. In fact, Diane's son said to me, it's incredible to actually be, like 30 years old and getting new family members. And of course I look at him and I says, tell me about it. Right. So the same's true for me, but I think it's really exciting, and I think speaks to this whole idea of who you surround yourself with matters and the difference it could make. Actually, my dad was my best man.
Awesome.
And how fun that was, for the two of us, really. As you might recall, and anyone who's looked at the book would know, there's a book I share about him. In fact, my license plate, the What Anyone Can Do, WACD 123, it isn't really 123, 123 so much as it's 123. It's the page in the book where tell the story about him being a police officer, and he's leaving the Boston police force after what, it was like 10, 12 years. And he was actually kind of just pursuing a career. He was going into the insurance business until he was kind of involved in that process, wins a pro-am with this guy. They're going out, they were having drinks and dinner one night, and he says to my dad, what are you going to insurance business for? I said, what are you doing that? He said, you love golf, you want to play. I said, why don't you go and be a golf pro and be a teaching pro and go do that? And my dad's looking at that at first saying, man, it's like he was almost 40 years old at the time. And that's something that kids do in their 20s, basically, is to go through all of those schools and all the protocols involved in being a Class A PGA professional. But the idea that he said, you know what, I think you're right. I think I'm going to go do that. And basically takes him over 4 years to do, gets his Class A PGA card, and taught for over 30 years, right? Think about it. So now he's 80. He's retired from doing it now, but just an incredible thing. And I think a wonderful, I'm sure, and I really want to hear some, obviously, so do our listeners, want to hear some examples from you about, like, just times where our family, oftentimes by example, showed us things that were incredible lifelong lessons that they were like, wow, it just shows you that if you're ever, no matter what stage in life, and I think Rich Karlgaard really, I think, speaks to that in Late Bloomers, right? Where it's about, hey, if you want to go do it, go do it. And it doesn't matter how old you are or any of that. Now, clearly, I'm 60, so if I wanted to do, like, I play golf now, but if I didn't, but wanted to take up the sport, I'm not going to go on the PGA Tour, but I could, hopefully you can take it up at this age in my life and get good enough to enjoy it, or whatever that may be, for you. But anyway,
The power of one voice like that. Had your dad's buddy not suggested that, maybe nobody would have suggested that.
No. No one would have suggested that.
And then he'd have been stuck in the insurance game.
Ooh, yeah. And maybe not. Maybe that wouldn't have lasted long, and he'd have on to try something else. Who knows? But um, you never know. I just think it's always fascinating when we talk about sometimes something that we think we want or we think, and then all of a sudden there's a no. Um, and we understand now all too well, the older you get, that all that no did was free you up to do the thing that you got to do afterwards that you never would have had the opportunity to do had that been a yes. And um, but I think in terms of, think about yourself in terms of growing up. I mean, and as far as whether it was a teacher or a parent or somebody who you kind of felt had an incredible influence for you in your life.
Yeah. And I think we talked in that last show that we did about, I've got an 83-year-old mentor in Springfield, Missouri, and I went last week, spent a couple of days with he and his wife, and visited with him, and he's in failing health, and he knows the end is probably sooner than later. But we had a great visit, and this is a guy that's known me since I was born. My parents knew him when he was probably 15 or 16. My mom is 87. My dad is 96. In
Wow.
fact, I got back today from visiting with them, and and they're in good health. Obviously getting older, but that's where my head goes these days. And I'm a couple of years ahead of you. I just think of the people that are 15 to 20 years older that I have intentionally surrounded myself with as people that could kind of say, hey, when you get here to this crossroads, watch your step, kind of people for me. And the sad thing is, as you get older, you outlive them,
Mm.
right? You outlive them. You don't expect to necessarily outlive your peers, but conversations that I have with my dad, who's now 96, he's mostly has outlived his, not just mentors,
Right.
but peers. And all it does for me is compel me. And I guess I would encourage anybody listening to us or watching us, take advantage. You just got to take advantage of that now. I don't care where you're at on the timeline of life, like you and your family, and this pivotal moment in y'all's life of getting married, and your dad standing next to you who's 80. I mean, you're seizing those moments. And I think too frequently we may neglect these people that are around us. I was having a conversation with my father about these times when all of this experience and all of this knowledge and all of this wisdom and all of these insights, and too infrequently we don't lean on it, which is why I really love Rich Karlgaard's book and that whole notion of late bloomers, of just us. It's not a matter of people judging and people saying, well, you should do this, you should do that. It's just a matter of the insights that some of these older heads can provide. I mean, your dad's got 20 years on you.
Yeah.
And that 20 years that's a that's a big delta difference, of what you've seen. And I don't know. My head goes to my ability to try to leverage as much of that as a resource as I possibly can, for my own benefit and for the benefit. My son is 39, and to benefit him, to just keep on passing this stuff down.
Yeah, what's also interesting, and what I really loved was, I mentioned about watching, quote, the kids, right? They're in their 30s and 20s,
Right.
but this idea of our peers and our mentors and all that. Our mentors can certainly be people younger than we are, as well. When I think about um, all of those young people today who, and those who were at the wedding, certainly, who were shaped by a world and by a completely different set of circumstances growing up than you or I were. So the lens that they look at everything, I don't care if it's politics or business or their own lives or family, friends, whatever it happens to be, is really worth understanding. And the only way to understand it is to really have conversations with them about it, to spend time with them, to get a sense of what has shaped their values and how they see the world and how they think about it. It's the only way it'll keep us relevant and fresh and current and understanding, and not be speaking to, a world that, was shaped by Gunsmoke, for example, but but a world that was shaped by, something a little more contemporary with regard to any things like that. So.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. The conversations that I've had in the last month or so with regard to friends and family, I think so many people, it's kind of interesting to me how many people are motivated by things that happened in their family and things that go back to pretty early childhood, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old. And no, they're not all positive.
Right.
They're absolutely not all positive, but it still is amazing the drivers that some of those things are, for a grown man who's a CEO, but whose mother was super critical the whole time growing up, and just how driven he is today at my age, at your age, and she's been long gone, but you know, I don't know. I can't count how many conversations I've had with people who've had experiences like that and come to some realization that, okay, it wasn't ideal and it wasn't great, but it did serve me. It did serve me, and I'm leveraging it. And not that we want to surround ourselves with people like that intentionally, but there are a ton of people, all of us, who've had circumstances and people in our life, and it hasn't been ideal. But
Oh, it brings up a great point, not only just of things that happen to us that may have been unfortunate or negative, but if they've had lingering effects on how we see the world and our behavior going forward, then that's obviously much more problematic, right? It's kind of funny. I think that, when we're born, we are hardwired in a certain way. There's no doubt about that. You see kids who out of the gate are just flat out different from their brothers and their sisters or their whatever sibling. I mean, everything is just, there's just something in the wiring that's different. Then that wiring gets shaped by experiences and circumstances and nurturing and kind of what they do. And then I think we are also challenged sometimes to unwire or to rewire some of these things, because we know emotionally we may have certain reactions to things, but as we've gotten older, as we've gotten more experiences, and now we have an intellect to realize, my response to that probably not great. So we're going to work on that. We're going to figure that out. And I think this is where surrounding ourselves, obviously, with people in our lives that can help us do those things can be really helpful. And it comes down to, and we obviously talk about it quite in the book, the better you know yourself, the better you're going to be able to surround yourself with the kind of people that can help you be the best person you can be. And when you're the best person you can be, think about the value you can bring to countless others.
Right.
I had a conversation with a student today where, she was talking, she sees herself through this lens where it was lacking a little bit of confidence and not seeing she's challenged here, 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 and here. And I'm looking at her like, are you kidding me? Seriously? That you've got this, 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 and this. Let's build on that. And the more we're able to tell that story, the more that you can be behind that story. And I think people can get concerned about things that, well, they don't have certain skills yet, or they don't have some of these things. And yet, I think what you and I think both have talked about and know really well, the things you can teach people, those aren't a problem. It's the things that you can't teach someone oftentimes to have integrity or to have the kind of work ethic or all those intangibles, all that stuff that makes someone who they are, not just what they can do. And if they're smart and they're curious and they're committed and they're all these other things, when it comes to some of the skill sets you've got to teach them, that's the easy part. Give me that person all day long. Right. So it was interesting, and fortunately at the end of the call, and it's kind of one of those moments that it was very, I didn't expect it so much, but it's one of those things where you got to make a difference in someone's life in a 10 or 15-minute phone call, just by having them see themselves just a little bit differently for a moment and have someone else say that to them. And, I think we all need that, from time to time. I don't care who you are or what position you're in, but,
well, there's no way that self-awareness is improved by going to some cave and meditating alone. I mean, I think there's empirical evidence as well as anecdotal evidence that doesn't work.
right.
We see ourselves one way, and that's not necessarily. We have this great ability to be able to lie to ourselves. Well, better yet, we have a great ability to believe that a lie is true, especially about ourselves, which I think other people can really help us see past. I mean, your dad's friend with the golf thing. I mean, he clearly knew your dad well enough to know, well, you don't want to do that. You ought to do this.
And my dad obviously trusted him well enough to know that what he was suggesting wasn't some, that it could be real. You could make it happen, and that it is capable of being done, but also that he's capable of doing it, and trusted that enough where, we talk a lot about how this exchange of information that we have from one another, it not only gives us, incredible learnings, but other people is what gives us the courage to act on that learning. And that's a classic example. On the flip side of things, I'll tell a story because at the wedding, it was really funny. We've got a 2.5-year-old grandchild, Nora, and Nora was going to be the flower girl. So when you think about that whole scene and whatever, she's 2.5. So that's not, you don't know what's going to happen, right? Nor did we care too much because it's just fun. It's just the kind of thing. And, there were times I would suggest over the weekend, it was a little fussy here and there and, quite wasn't paying attention to different things or whatever. But there was something about her from the beginning that I thought, this kid's a red light performer. This is going to be all about when it's showtime. It's going to be all about that. And this kid, put those flowers literally up in the air with more flair and more joy and more exuberance. There was not a thing, nothing self-conscious about this. Trust me, as she is coming down and doing that, and it just captivated everyone. And then she gets to near the bottom of the stairs. This was funny. She's the empty basket now, so she's getting used to this now. So what does she do? She gives it to her mother, gives it to my daughter Kristen. Then she goes down a couple more steps, and runs into my brother's arms down on the step, and says, "I did it!" And everyone was just like, it was just like cool. It set the tone for everything. For the whole rest of the ceremony. This kid's 2.5 years old, totally, stole the show in many respects in the most positive of ways. It was perfect, but did so just by being herself and just by being in the moment, just by feeling and experiencing and sharing, joy and fun and not being self-conscious. It's everything that Angela has talked to us about.
Yeah, the challenge now is to get her to 22 and have her still be that way.
Well, it's true. It's a challenge for everyone, Yeah, we kind of get messed up along the way in that regard, and that's too bad. But hey, maybe this next generation will be better about that.
That's right.
And
it's amazing how frequently all this boils down to safety, though. I mean, even for a 2.5-year-old.
Oh yeah.
To just the more that I dive into this, and the more that I learn from you, and the more that I learn from these conversations, trust continues to come up. But really, I have learned from you the bedrock of all that. It still is safety. It still is these people that we feel safe with because, for whatever reason, we trust them, like your dad trusted his buddy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of what people talk about in families is unconditional love. It's a little bit of, I mean, I think we have a responsibility in terms of how we behave and how we are with our family. But at the same time, I think there's an incredible level of trust. There's a clear recognition that when you're really close to someone, you've known each other for a long time, any air that you're being perfect whether you're perfect about anything you blew that a long time ago, so no need to pretend anymore. And which kind of brings me to, I know sometime, soon, and I do want to mention this because, as you know, Ryan Foland did the cartoons for What Anyone Can Do, and he and Leonard Kim have a new book that just came out, literally just shipped like on Monday or Tuesday. I think I got it on Tuesday, and it's called Ditch the Act, and it's very much all about let's not put up all the veneer and all the stuff and try to create this persona that isn't real. Let's just figure out how do we be authentic selves, almost really in the way Nora was, that day, and how we can be better at that and do that. And, so obviously, whether it's we talk to Ryan and Leonard, or we get Ryan on the show sometime soon, I'm looking forward to, I looked at the book, fortunately, in the manuscript stage and wrote a review for it. And they're both good guys, really smart guys, but also really committed to and really attentive to this subject. And I think it's
Ryan just needs a little bit more energy.
That's it. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, too reserved.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a good thing. I mean, he's absolutely living.
Well, exactly right. I mean, that
proof of what he wrote about.
He is absolutely just having fun, and he's out there with things that don't go well just as well as he is with things that do go well. And again, I think that's part of it. It's part of why people trust those. The people who have read What Anyone Can Do, their favorite parts of it, and I think for all the right reasons, are times where I talk about, like, this happened and it didn't go well, and I screwed this up, or people
we can all resonate with that. I mean,
they love to know it. They love to, they're so sick of getting everybody's highlight reel, that it's like, hey, that isn't the way anybody's life goes.
Right.
And it's just, that kind of thing. But I will say that this weekend was a bit of a highlight reel, I will say. And it was great again, because it took two families and very quickly, brought them together in the way that was so extraordinary. And I don't think it's just a blip. It wasn't just an event. I think it was the start of something pretty, substantial. I think there's a bunch of us that will be going to Boston in early December, for example, just for a little holiday celebration between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and a bunch of folks who are just going to run out there and show up. It'll be fun. So.
Yeah, well, it's a new blended family. So
yeah. I said Brady Bunch are amateurs compared to what we just did this weekend.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you've got a big bowl in front of you that I know is filled.
Yeah, I'm going to be. I have my choice. I think would be to
look at that.
Give this out to what will be literally in our neighborhood. This is last year. This was discovered about 350 to 400 kids. Okay,
that's awesome.
And I think I would rather do that than try to tackle this on my own. I will tell you. See, who you surround yourself with matters. We need all those kids tonight because we got to get that out of here.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it sounds like you have a good time with it too. So
I get the projector out and I use the garage doors as a screen where I get all this Halloween video and stuff like that, and I'll put out big Bluetooth speakers with some Halloween music and have a glass of wine, give out the candy, and that's all good.
That's awesome.
So it'll be a fun night. The folks across the street from us have the most elaborate display in front of their house. It's crazy, So I step up and just do my little electric show on Halloween night. That's about it. But
well, it's excellent.
Yeah,
it's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy. Congratulations to you both and all of your family. It was I saw some of the photographs and pictures in social media. It looked like a terrific place too.
Yeah, it was funny. And in most cases, that was the first time I saw any of those images as well. It was other people just snapping and just.
Yeah, well, everybody that was tagging your name, I would see. So, but man, yeah, it was, it looked like a picturesque place to do it. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, and so I'll give a nod to this place too, Esperanza at Cabo. There's really nothing like it. I mean, you really want to do something special, and go to a resort that's on a really different level than most places you'll ever go to. That's the deal.
I'm
It's an auberge property. Um, they actually have a sister property though at Chileno Bay, and they have a restaurant there called Comal that we went to one night. Well, actually, we went one night kind of with the kids, if you will, another night with friends who stayed over on the Sunday night. We stayed through Tuesday. It was kind of a Thursday to Tuesday thing for us, but um, most folks did a 3-day deal. Like I said, Thursday to Saturday or Friday to Sunday. And Sunday night, we were very fortunate. We had 10 of us, go back out there, and it was just delightful. I mean, it was just really great. And again, great conversation, great fun stuff. And now these people have been recruited, many of them from the dinner that night. I'll be celebrating my 60th birthday in just a few weeks. And so that has turned into, a bit of a celebration as well. So yeah, fun stuff. Yeah.
Well, it should be. It should be.
Yeah.
It's well, I'm 2 years ahead of you. I guess it's a big deal. I don't know. I don't care. I don't think much about it. Do you?
Yeah. The
Hey,
numbers? No, not at all. I just try to, just don't even
and
worry
you sit
about
here,
it.
you tell the kids, listen, I don't feel any different than I did when I was like 17. And they
Just
look
try to
at
go
you
to the
like,
gym, do my thing, try to stay as fit as I can, just try to, do that kind of stuff and feel good because it isn't about the number of years. It's about whatever I can squeeze out of the quality of those years. So,
exactly right.
I can
That's
somehow keep my sanity and,
right.
maintain some level of strength, flexibility, and cardiovascular, so that you can actually enjoy certain things and certain activities,
Right.
and not feel like, nah, I can't do that anymore. That's no fun,
Right.
So we'll see what we
Well,
can.
at the heart of that is the people that surround you, because you want to do it. There's people
Yeah,
you want to do it with and people you want
absolutely.
to do it
The
for.
people, seriously, the people I surround myself by, I just try to keep up. I mean, honest to God, that's that's my whole. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. There's no excelling or beating anyone there. I'm just trying to keep up. And then the young folks will help you keep up too, because they want to do runs, they want to do things. That Taylor and I did a half marathon together in March. I mean, to be able to do and have fun with those kinds of things, it's great. And but
It's excellent. Well, we appreciate you for listening. We appreciate you for watching.
sure
We
do.
hope you'll subscribe to the podcast. You can do that, and you can find all the links and all the cool stuff at leobattari.com. That's LeoBottary.com. Congrats to you. Congrats to the whole family. Congrats to the Nationals and all of the fans in D.C. And congrats to everybody here in Dallas-Fort Worth who did not want the Astros to win because Dallas hates Houston. What can I say?
There you go. All right. Well, hey, you have a good week. We'll talk soon. Thanks. Bye.
To learn more about our show and what we do, to submit questions to us, and to subscribe to What Anyone Can Do podcast, please visit our website, whatanyoneCanDo.com. What Anyone Can Do podcast is hosted by Leo Battari and me, Randy Cantrell. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod is Vibe Ace, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Thanks for watching or listening. We hope you'll share the podcast.